So it's time now to listen to the words of let's call him now as a Rabbi Yaakov Kronenberg, who was an astrologer and a Kabbalist, a person of tremendous knowledge. He wrote this book called Jewish Astrology, a Cosmic Science, Torah, Talmud, and Zohar works on spiritual astrology. Now, spiritual astrology. So going through the book, we see that the main place that we're at right now is talking about astrology according to Jewish law. And it turns out that although it's not discussed very much in especially Lithuanian yeshivas now, there are a lot of places in the Talmud that deal exclusively with subjects that are astrological or time-based, sequence-based. So that's where we're at, and that's what we've been going through, and I'm finding this much more readable than I thought. I've read a couple of times before, but this is a lot of information that's, I'm not that great at grasping it. So here we are learning it again. So he writes like this, and maybe I can bring this down a little bit, and I'll try to do the best I can about staying up with it. Let me get this right. So he says there's a tradition in Judaism, which we will discuss in later lessons, which explains how we overcome our planetary influences. I have a book from the 1500s where it is explained that the Jews were given the Torah and all the commandments, and that these commandments enable them to overcome the planetary influences, which is a very deep idea, which I will discuss in later talks. Jews were given the Torah to overcome their natural inclinations and desires which come from the planetary influences. So one who follows all the commandments may be saved from all the natural, trouble as determined by the mazel, his mazel, and the mazel as going around at that time. And Rabbi Avraham is going to talk about this also. So the important thing is that in the eyes of the non-Jews, it is not so much that the Jewish astrology is better than other astrology in predicting, but that Jews were able to overcome their planetary influences, overcome those predictions. Just like what Avlat saw above, that the Jew was meant to die from the snake bite, but instead the snake was cut into two and the man was saved. And from Rabbi Akiva, we also see that he held that Israel is above planetary influences. For Rabbi Akiva had a daughter, and a Chaldean said to him, on the day that your daughter has her wedding, the snake will bite her and she will die. Now, all of this is in the Torah. This is in the Talmud. This is all Talmudic language. Rabbi Akiva was worried about it very much. On the day before her wedding, she prepared a special, let me get this up here so we can see it. She took a special crown for her head and stored it for the next day by attaching it to the wall using two long pins to hold it up. And unbeknown to her, these two pins pierced the eyes of a snake, which is sitting inside the crack of the wall. On the morning of her wedding, when she took it off the wall to put it on her head and found that a dead snake was attached to it, Rabbi Akiva asked his daughter, what did you do to kill the snake? She replied, a poor man. I guess you would say, what did you do that would cause the snake to be killed? And she replied, a poor man was there, and everyone was so busy preparing for the wedding that they did not attend to him and give him food. So I gave him my portion of food to him. So Rabbi Akiva said to her, you did a good deed. And it went out and declared, charity saves one from death. Tzedakah tatzil mimovis in Hebrew. And not just from terrible death, but from death itself. And we also know from Rabbi Nachman Bar Yitzchak, who said Israel is not under the planetary influences, which means that even though there is an influence, there's no question, one is able to overcome it. because a Chaldean said to his mother, "Your son is going to become a thief." So she took that seriously and made sure that he always covered his head with a kippah and followed all the commandments and made sure that he never had his head uncovered. She said to him, "Cover your head so you'll have the fear of heaven and pray for mercy." At the time, he didn't know why she said that to him. One day, he sat and studied under a palm tree, and his kippah fell off, and a lust to steal came upon him. And he climbed up the tree and cut a cluster of dates with his teeth. He stole it. All these different examples show that Jews were able to change their planetary influences by doing good deeds. So we are influenced by the planets, but we can overcome it if only we do the mitzvah. A Jew is not automatically exempt from planetary influences, but has tools to overcome them. That is what is meant by Israel is above the influence of the stars. There is also a very important Kabbalah book called the Shar HaKadosh, the Gate of Holiness, which was written by Rabbi Chaim Vital. There he mentioned that the way to correct one's self, that is, and change our natural inclinations as determined by our planetary influences, one has to do the 613 commandments with the correct intention, and by doing so, a person will correct himself and be removed from astral influence. In Jewish psychology, the best way for a person to change himself is through performing the 613 mitzvahs, commandments, with the right intention as set out in the Bible. Or for the non-Jew, he has to perform the 7 universal laws of Noah, which are required of people who are not Jewish. So the thing is to fulfill these commandments, and by doing so, you get the ability to restrain your bad character traits, because everyone has some bad character traits, and everyone has things to work on. The whole purpose of coming to the world is to fix yourself. Wherever you are, in whatever situation you are in, and you should see in the Torah that the way to fix character traits is through action, that is, doing the deed, which includes daily studying. If you find it difficult to give things to find things you find it difficult to give things to others, you have the trait of being a miser. You overcome it by giving charity. If you are an angry person, you should study how the rabbis describe the terrible repercussion of anger and how it causes one to sin. So on with other character traits. So understanding astrology and the system of influences in which you were born, which molds you to a tremendous extent, but nonetheless, here we're saying that the Torah could be added to that and perfected and sweeten it. So there are 2 things one is to do, the commandments, and the other is to acquire and fashion for yourself a better character. And this you do by continuously doing the commandments that you are not used to doing and that don't go according to your nature. And this can change the planetary influences. In other words, it is the character traits that hinder or help us in fulfilling the commandments. So in a sense, the major work must be on changing our natures, which we can change by doing the will of God. Those are the words of Rabbi Yaakov Kronenberg.